have a question and you're using a speakerphone, please mute your headset before making your selection. Should you wish to cancel the question, you may press the pound sign. Once again, please continue to stand by and thank you for your patience. Nous vous remercions de bien vouloir patienter. La conférence débutera sous peu. Durant la séance de questions-réponses, si vous avez une question, appuyez sur étoile 1. Si vous utilisez un téléphone main libre, s'il vous plaît, suivez le combiné avant d'effectuer votre sélection. Si vous désirez annuler votre question, appuyez sur le dièse. Nous prions de bien vouloir attendre quelques instants. Nous vous remercions de patienter.
We were live and they put us back on this the elevator music. So we're about to have a Health Canada briefing in 2 minutes on the state of legalization in Canada. Stay tuned. Literally, we are 2 minutes away. The elevator music is on, and we're going to see what Health Canada has to say about the cannabis sector. Hopefully it's good news. Hope you guys are having a great day. Yeah, man. The Raptors won. Congratulations, Toronto Raptors, on being the NBA champions of the world. Dreams do come true. Nobody in Toronto thought that they would win. I'm from Toronto. I didn't even think they were going to win. I didn't think the NBA was going to let them win. For a while there, the referees weren't letting them win when they were calling ghost 3-point fouls twice on Klay Thompson. Then there was that time that they called a trip on Steph Curry when Curry tripped himself. Oh, here we go. Oh, back to the music. They're keeping us, there's a lot of anticipation for this news. We are 1 minute away. When Health Canada is live, we will be tuning in, and it's a glorious day. Guys, I'm hearing people saying that cannabis could be legal, that marijuana could be legal on June 21st all across America. Call me crazy. Call me nuts. Articles are coming out. People are predicting that marijuana is going to legalize in America June 21st.
The conference will begin momentarily. During the question and answer session, if you have a question, please press star 1. If you have a question and you're using a speakerphone, please lift your handset before making your selection. Should you wish to cancel the question, you may press the pound sign. Once again, please continue to stand by and thank you for your patience. Nous vous remercions de bien vouloir patienter. La conférence débutera sous peu. Durant la séance de questions-réponses, si vous avez une question, appuyez sur étoile 1. Si vous utilisez un téléphone main libre, s'il vous plaît, soulevez le combiné avant d'effectuer votre sélection. Si vous désirez annuler votre question, appuyez sur le dièse. Nous vous prions de bien vouloir attendre quelques instants et nous vous remercions de patienter.
Oh, back to the music. Come on, guys. So, we'll be live any second with Health Canada. The conference call will be starting any second. We will be live any second with Health Canada, guys. We're literally just on hold. We are representing the media today. Health Canada has breaking news on legalization of cannabis. It's a legalization of cannabis briefing, and we will be live with it any moment. We are on the call. Yeah, man. Texas has passed hemp growing. I'm telling you, legalization of cannabis is coming to America, and it's going to happen sooner than you think. Some people think it will happen a week from today. Here we go. Oh my goodness, more music. Start the call, would ya? Just start the call. Could you start the call? My goodness. Could you start the call? Music is quite annoying. Oh.
Please continue to stand by. The conference will begin momentarily.
Start it now.
During the question and answer session, if you have a question, please press star 1. If you have a question and you're
Start it now.
click your handset before making your selection. Should you wish to cancel a question, you may press the pound sign. Once again, please continue to stand by and thank you for your patience.
Well, the companies that have been doing the most recently are IIPR. Take a look at IIPR. IIPR is the gift that keeps on giving, and they pay dividends. IIPR is absolutely on fire. Oh, back to the music. Health Canada, what are you doing to us? What are you doing to us, Health Canada? Holding us in anticipation. Wow. CLCI went from 10 cents to 90 cents in 5 days. That's big. Yeah, I'd like to see MedMen explode. Cureleaf, TrueLeaf, C-Web, Green Gold Brands, Harvest Health and Recreation. All the top companies in America will explode. And right now, we're nearing a bottom, so they really have only one way to go, and that's up. So if legalization of cannabis does happen in America, I fully anticipate a huge explosion for the sector. And not just for the American companies, Canadian companies too. Companies like AUSA, companies like Rivers, I mean, the upside for them is just staggering. So much upside for those guys. Oh my goodness, this stupid music, elevator music. Could you just start this? We're waiting in anticipation. In the meantime, I'll share this everywhere. We'll tweet this. Let the people know that we will be live with Health Canada on the phone. And we are representing the media here with Health Canada today. So if there's any questions you guys want us to ask, let me know and we can pose that question. Rich TV Live is a well-respected media outlet for cannabis. More and more every single day, we're getting recognized as one of the largest cannabis platforms in the universe. And I feel like we will only get bigger. And it's because we continue to feature and follow the sector more so than anybody else on the planet. In fact, yesterday I was at a Pot TV Expert Joints Cannabis Life Network year-end party where I got a chance to rub elbows with so many people in the sector. And that's just the start of a whole new world of content that's going to be coming to Rich TV Live. We are in the sector. We are deep in the sector, and we will continue to be deep in the sector. And we will continue to be one of the leading media platforms for the cannabis sector forever. Start it now. Start it now. Come on, Health Canada, why are you keeping us holding? Health Canada is doing a live briefing to provide an update on legalization and regulation of cannabis. We're on the line. More elevator music. Unbelievable. More elevator music. Could we get started here, Health Canada? We're all waiting in anticipation. You know, some of us want to celebrate the Raptors' victory. A parade is happening in Toronto on Monday. Congratulations, Toronto. Congratulations, Canada, on the first NBA championship ever outside of America in the history of the National Basketball Association. Congratulations to Kawhi Leonard for winning the MVP, the most valuable player in the 2019 NBA playoffs. Toronto is the champions of the world. Toronto is the National Basketball Association champions of the world. Here we are.
Welcome and thank you for participating in today's technical briefing about the regulations of cannabis. Je représente PLiBGEhbXkQPCHTZsUlx-GxSGgsCLUSKJO Chief of Media Relations for Health Canada. Before we start, I'd like to say that accredited media who have RSVP'd to the media advisory should have received the media briefing package by email a few minutes ago. If you haven't received it, please send an email to hd.media.sd@canada.ca and someone from our media relations team will send it to you shortly. All other requests for information should be addressed to the cannabis team at cannabis@canada.ca. Today's session will begin shortly with some opening remarks from Mr. John Clear, Acting Director General in the Controlled Substance and Cannabis Branch at Health Canada. Mr. Clear will be accompanied by Ms. Andrea Budjo and Mr. Hanan Abramovic, also from the Controlled Substance and Cannabis Branch at Health Canada. We will then open the telephone line to questions from the media. Il y aura d'abord une courte présentation, puis nous répondrons à vos questions au téléphone. If you wish to ask questions, please press star 1 on your phone. Si vous désirez poser une question, veuillez appuyer sur étoile 1. Attributions of statement made during today's technical briefing can be attributed to Government of Canada official. Les renseignements fournis au cours de la présente séance d'information technique peuvent être attribués aux représentants du gouvernement du Canada. Procédons à la séance d'information technique. Let's begin today's technical briefing. Over to you, John.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon and welcome to the call. The purpose of today's briefing is to provide you detailed information on the amendment to the cannabis regulation that we are announcing today and to answer any technical questions you may have. Before we begin, I would like to note that the regulations will be formally published in the Canada Gazette Part 2 on June 26, 2019. However, at the same time, the regulations and the other media material are being provided to the media. Health Canada is sending them by email to industry and public health stakeholders, provinces and territories, Indigenous leaders, as well as federal license holders and license applicants. My colleague and I will cover two topics over the course of this briefing. First, we will highlight some important details found in the regulation, which will govern the production and sale of edible cannabis, cannabis extract, and cannabis topical. Second, we will speak about some of the health effects associated with the new cannabis products and new information products to help Canadians better understand and lower these risks.
Thank you. For those of you following along with the slide presentation, we are now on slide 3. You'll recall that in December of 2018, Health Canada published proposed regulations on the new class products for public comment. We received input from more than 7,000 individuals and organizations, and the final regulations reflect this feedback. Overall, the majority of respondents supported the government's proposal to allow the production and sale of a diversity of cannabis products and to set out clear controls to minimize the public health and safety risks that these products pose. Par conséquent, le règlement sur le cannabis immobilier autorisera le producteur et la vente légale d'une large gamme de types de produits de cannabis. Parmi ces produits figurent le cannabis comestible, par exemple les produits de boulangerie et les boissons, les extraits de cannabis, par exemple les liquides de vapotage et les produits à forte concentration comme le cire et le hashish, et aussi le cannabis pour usage topique, par exemple les crèmes, les lotions et les bombes. En permettant à l'industrie de cannabis légal de donner accès à une gamme complète de produits de cannabis réglementés, le gouvernement du Canada pourra plus rapidement atteindre son objectif de démanteler le marché du cannabis illégal, en réduisant sa portée et sa présence dans la collectivité canadienne et en réduisant la source de revenus des criminels. At the same time, it's important that the regulations establish requirements and standards to address the public health and public safety risks that these new products pose. These risks include the potential for accidental consumption and overconsumption, the possible appeal of these products to young persons, and the risk of foodborne illness and contamination. Moving to slide 4, diapo numéro 4. As a result, the amended regulations will establish clear limits on the amount of THC that can be in different products. For edible cannabis, the maximum amount of THC that can be in a single package is 10 milligrams. Limiting the amount of THC to 10 milligrams lowers the risk of a serious adverse reaction, including the risk of hospitalization when it is accidentally consumed by an adult or a child. En ce qui concerne les extraits de cannabis, la quantité maximale de THC permise par emballage est de 1000 mg. Cependant, la limite de chaque unité, par exemple une capsule, dans cet emballage est de 10 mg. Pour ce qui est du cannabis pour usage tropique, la quantité maximale de THC permise par emballage est de 1000 mg. Moving to slide 5, diapo 5. The amended regulations also establish new controls aimed at reducing the appeal of cannabis products to young persons. Under the Act, it is already prohibited to sell any cannabis products that can reasonably be considered appealing to a young person. The cannabis regulations also already require child-resistant containers as well as plain packaging. All products containing THC will be required to carry the standardized cannabis symbol and a health warning message. Le règlement modifié interdit l'utilisation du sucre et du colorant dans les produits de vapotage de cannabis et d'autres extraits de cannabis pour réduire davantage la risque. Moving to slide 6, diapo 6. Le dernier élément important du règlement consiste en une série de nouveaux contrôles de production conçus pour réduire les risques de contamination et de maladies d'origine alimentaire. Ces nouveaux contrôles s'inspirent largement des cas frontières existants au Canada en matière de stabilité alimentaire, de vapotage et de cosmétiques. Among other requirements, the amended regulations set rules for the proper handling and storage of ingredients, restrictions on the use of certain ingredients. They require the preparation and implementation of preventive control plans, and they prohibit the production of cannabis products in the same facilities where conventional food is manufactured. This last control will help minimize the risk of cross-contamination and reassure Canadians, as well as Canada's national trade partners, of the safety and quality of food produced in Canada. Moving to slide 7, diapo 7. Le règlement modifié s'est rapporté dans la Gazette du Canada le 26 juin 2019. C'est le 15 juillet 2019, les titulaires de licence pourront soumettre le demande de modification de licence. Le règlement modifié entrera en vigueur le 17 octobre 2019. Cependant, les nouveaux produits ne seraient pas mis en vente avant la mi-septembre. As I just indicated in French, the amended regulations will come into force on October 17, 2019. However, new products will not be available for purchase before mid-December of 2019 at the earliest. This is because, under the current regulations, federally licensed processors must notify Health Canada of any new cannabis product they intend to sell at least 60 days before they can make it available for sale. Health Canada will begin accepting new product notifications for edible cannabis and the other new classes on October 17, 2019, the same day that the amended regulations come into force. Between now and December of 2019, the licensed industry will need to decide what specific new products they will produce and begin to build their inventory. Provinces and territories will equally need to decide which products they will offer to adult consumers and how these products will be distributed within their retail environment. They will need time to purchase and obtain the new products and make them available for sale through their retail platform. As such, adult consumers should expect to see a limited selection of new products here in stores initially, with additional products becoming available over time. En passant le diapo 8, slide 8, je cède maintenant la parole à mon collègue qui abordera certains des effets sur la santé et des risques associés à ces nouveaux produits de cannabis et présentera certaines données fournies par Santé Canada pour aider les Canadiens à comprendre les effets et à réduire les risques associés à la consommation du cannabis.
Je vous remercie. Slide 9, diapositive numéro 9. Le gouvernement du Canada adopte une approche axée sur la santé publique pour la légalisation et la réglementation du cannabis. Il vise, entre autres, à accroître la sensibilisation aux renseignements pour la santé et la sécurité de la consommation du cannabis et à surveiller les habitudes de consommation de cannabis. La consommation de cannabis comporte le risque de ressentir des effets néfastes pour la santé. Some of the common immediate or short-term effects of consuming THC include experiencing euphoria or a high, drowsiness, anxiety, and impaired ability to remember, concentrate, or react quickly. Persistent daily or near-daily use can also lead to long-term effects. For example, the long-term use of cannabis can include an increased risk of problematic cannabis use and addiction. Frequent long-term cannabis use may also be associated with harm to a person's memory, concentration, and ability to think and make decisions. Certaines catégories de population sont à plus grand risque de ressentir des effets nocifs. Par exemple, les adolescents et les jeunes adultes sont les plus vulnérables parce que leur cerveau continue de se développer jusqu'à l'âge de 25 ans environ. Les personnes enceintes ou qui allaitent ne devraient également pas consommer de cannabis car les substances qu'ils contiennent se transmettent de la mère à l'enfant et peuvent nuire à ceux. Slide 10, diapositive numéro 2. Everyone's response to cannabis can differ. Current evidence suggests that sex at birth, age, pre-existing medical conditions, and previous experience with cannabis can all play a role. In addition, a person's response to cannabis can differ from one time to the next. Factors such as one's emotional or mental state when consuming, or the environment in which consumption occurs, can all play a role in affecting individual responses to cannabis. It is also important that adults understand that it takes longer to feel the effects of eating or drinking cannabis, and that those effects last longer when compared to smoking or vaping cannabis. Evidence suggests that it can take up to 4 hours to feel the full effects of consuming edible cannabis. Consuming more within this time period can result in overconsumption and an increased risk of adverse effects. Pour terminer, plus la quantité de THC d'un produit est élevée, plus le risque d'affaiblissement des facultés et des effets néfastes est grand. Les effets néfastes peuvent aller de l'anxiété, la perte de mémoire, les nausées, les vomissements, à des effets plus graves. Santé Canada a élaboré une gamme d'outils, notamment une vidéo dont on fait référence dans cette diapositive, qui vise à aider les gens à comprendre les effets de la consommation de cannabis sur la santé et comment atténuer les risques. Slide 11, diapositive numéro 11. Adults who choose to consume cannabis can do a number of things to lower their risk of experiencing adverse effects. They should choose a product that contains a low amount of THC and an equal or higher level of CBD. They should also wait until they feel the effect before deciding whether to consume more. With edible cannabis products, new or occasional consumers should choose products that contain 2.5 milligrams of THC or less, as indicated on the product label. For cannabis extracts meant to be inhaled, such as with a vape pen, new consumers choose products that contain less than 100 milligrams of THC per gram of product, or less than 10% THC. Les adultes devraient éviter de fumer du cannabis et de consommer fréquemment. Ils devraient également éviter de consommer du cannabis en même temps que des produits contenant de la nicotine, de l'alcool, d'autres drogues ou des produits de santé tels que des médicaments sur ordonnance ou des produits de santé naturelle. En effet, ce cumul accroît le risque d'affaiblissement des facultés et d'autres effets néfastes. Pour terminer, les adultes ne doivent pas oublier de conserver tous leurs produits du cannabis dans un endroit sécuritaire, hors de la portée des enfants et des animaux, et dans leur contenant protégeant sans origine. Et surtout, ne conduisez jamais sous l'influence et ne montez pas dans un véhicule dont le conducteur a consommé du cannabis. Slide 12, diapositive numéro 12. Dans le cas des modifications qui ont été apportées au règlement, Santé Canada a mis à jour 2 outils pédagogiques importants. Pour commencer, Santé Canada a actualisé la fiche de renseignement pour le consommateur qui doit être remise au consommateur au moment de l'achat de cannabis. The consumer information sheet includes information about the health risks associated with consuming cannabis and information on how to lower these risks. Second, the health warning messages that are required to be displayed on the labels of cannabis products have also been updated. changes are informed by the best available evidence from peer-reviewed scientific publications and advice from scientific experts. The updated versions also include concepts from the low-risk cannabis use guidelines from the Center for Addiction and Mental Health. Slide 13, diapositive numéro 13. Better understanding the effects of cannabis, including the risks and harms associated with cannabis use, as well as its potential therapeutic uses, remains a key objective for the Government of Canada. That is why the Government of Canada has made significant investments to support cannabis research. In particular, the Canadian Institutes of Health Research has created a number of new funding opportunities through its integrated cannabis research strategy. Budget 2018 also included funding to the Canadian Centre on Substance Use and Addictions and the Mental Health Commission of Canada to collectively support research on cannabis and examine the impacts of legalization, including the impacts on mental health. De plus, selon les recommandations du groupe de travail sur la légalisation et la réglementation du cannabis, le gouvernement a mis en place un certain nombre d'outils pour surveiller les répercussions de la légalisation. Les nouvelles connaissances acquises grâce à la recherche et à la surveillance permettront de modifier, en cas de besoin, le cadre réglementaire canadien en matière de cannabis et de poursuivre les efforts d'éducation et de sensibilisation. Thank you for your attention while we took you through our presentation. We would now be pleased to answer any questions you may have. We'll now open the telephone line to questions. Please identify yourself and include the media outlet you are representing. We are also asking that you identify to whom the question is addressed, and we'll be taking your questions in both official languages. We ask that you limit yourself to one question and only one follow-up. Answer can be attributed to the Government of Canada officials and not for name attribution. Veuillez vous nommer, nous dire quel média vous représentez. Nous vous demandons aussi de vous limiter à une question et seulement une question de suivi. Vous pouvez poser vos questions dans l'une des deux langues officielles. Nous aimerions vous rappeler que vous pouvez citer les représentants et les identifier seulement comme représentants du gouvernement du Canada et non par leur nom. Opératrice.
There was one question we could ask. What would it be?
Opératrice, est-ce que vous êtes parlé?
Oui, bonjour. Alors, s'il vous plaît, appuyez sur étoile 1 pour toute question. Please press star 1 for any question. Marie Bastel from Le Devoir is the first person. Please go ahead, à vous la parole.
Oui, bonjour. La question est pour la personne qui saura mieux y répondre. Je ne sais pas trop à qui la poser. Vous avez parlé du délai de 60 jours nécessaire pour donner un préavis à Santé Canada quand on veut faire approuver un nouveau produit. J'aimerais ça comprendre pourquoi est-ce que ça doit être entre octobre et décembre. Si vous permettez déjà que les producteurs fassent une demande à partir du 15 juillet, est-ce qu'on n'aurait pas pu permettre les demandes en amont de la mi-octobre comme prévu? Et puis, dans le cas du spot séché, est-ce qu'il fallait aussi ce délai de 60 jours pour préapprouver, donner préavis d'un nouveau produit?
I think they're looking for the interpreter.
Allô?
Oui, merci pour la question.
Oui.
En fait, la date du 15 juillet qui est annotée, c'est la date où le moment où les titulaires de licence vont soumettre le demande de modification des licences. La chose avec le 60 jours pour le préavis, ça peut commencer à partir du moment où les nouvelles catégories de cannabis seront autorisées pour la vente légale et existent comme catégorie de cannabis. Et la date là, c'est le 17 octobre 2019. Et c'est une exigence actuelle du règlement et c'est quelque chose que les détenteurs de licence doivent faire pour les produits maintenant comme le cannabis séché.
OK. Donc, compte tenu que le cannabis séché, c'était le 17 octobre, je vois pas de raison réglementaire à ce qu'on n'ait pas dit le 60 jours va être avant le 17 octobre. Est-ce que je me trompe ou est-ce qu'il y a une raison vraiment technique de règlement d'alimentation que je connais pas, là?
Non, en fait, c'est parce que le règlement du cannabis exige qu'une détenteur de licence, une transformateur, dans la Santé Canada un avis de 300 jours avant la vente d'un nouveau produit. Et là, il doit indiquer à nous autres la catégorie de cannabis. Donc, cannabis séché, c'est une catégorie de cannabis et cannabis comestible va être une catégorie de cannabis PLiBGEhbXkQPCHTZsUlx-GxSGgsCLUSKJO.
Thank you, merci. The next question is from Lisa Campbell from High Times. La prochaine question de Lisa Campbell.
High Times.
Vous avez la parole. Please go ahead.
Hi, bonjour. I'm just asking a question around no elements that would associate the product with alcoholic beverages. I was wondering if that also applies to the bottle size, and if alcohol-free beverages, if they're allowed to use break type or brewing style if it is dealcoholized.
So thanks for the question. I mean, maybe I can start by kind of explaining kind of the purpose of the requirement. So essentially what the regulations say is that it will be prohibited to package and label a cannabis product or to promote or advertise a cannabis product in a manner that kind of evokes an alcoholic beverage or uses an alcohol or tobacco or vaping brand or term or expression. So it's meant to preclude things like, cannabis beer or cannabis wine, or to associate a cannabis product with an alcoholic brand. And so that is that's the restriction that's set out in the regulation.
So there's no restrictions on bottle size then, it's just using terms like Chardonnay or IPA that would be prohibited?
That's correct. There are kind of requirements around the amount of THC that can be in a product, but there is no restriction on volume or size, except with respect to the public possession limit. So recall there is a public possession limit for cannabis, so that would include edible cannabis and extract. And so as long as the maximum size of the packaging container doesn't contain more than the public possession limit for that class of cannabis, then the product is fine.
Thank you. The next question is from Jeff Bassey from the Punjab Radio, Vancouver. Vous la parole, please go ahead.
Thank you for taking my question here. The first question I got is on flavors. In the market right now, you see sprays with peppermint, you see sprays with an orange flavor, and these type of flavors. Will they be allowed? And the second part to my question is, you guys have limited the THC level to 10 mils for it. So, for example, if you have a cookie, can you pack those cookies into 10 cookies, or is it limited that each cookie has to be packed separately? Thank you.
Thanks for the question. So, with respect to your question on flavors, the regulations, would permit in the cannabis extract category the use of flavors. Of course, license holders are subject to those rules in the Cannabis Act that say that you can't sell a product that is appealing to you. So that's something to consider there. And the regulations do also outline a number of restrictions with respect to the promotion of certain specified flavors on things like vaping products. And those rules are entirely consistent with rules that apply to vaping products that are regulated in Canada under the Tobacco and Vaping Products Act. And obviously they're designed to help reduce the appeal of cannabis products to young persons and prevent inducement to youth. With respect to your second question on THC limits in edible cannabis, the rules are really clear. You're restricted to 10 milligrams of THC in a package. So whether your package has one cookie or 10 cookies, the limit is still 10 milligrams. And this is absolutely a key control in the regulations, and one that's designed to address those risks that we spoke about during the presentation, the risks of overconsumption and accidental consumption.
Thank you, merci. La prochaine question nous vient d'Amélie Bergeron de l'agence QMI. À vous la parole. Please go ahead.
Oui, bonjour. Ma question est un peu la même que
raison pour laquelle je vais voir notre appel. Vous avez dit que c'est à partir du 15 juillet que les détenteurs de licence peuvent faire la demande pour vendre les nouveaux produits, des produits comestibles ou des produits topiques, par exemple. Donc, si on fait le calcul, le 15 juillet, pour donner un préavis de 60 jours, on arrive bien avant décembre, la mi-décembre. Alors, pourquoi attendre à la mi-décembre pour que les produits se retrouvent en vente et en distribution?
OK. En fait, le 15 juillet, c'est la date où une titulaire de licence pourra soumettre une demande pour une modification de licence. Et une modification de licence est nécessaire pour vendre le cannabis comestible et les autres nouveaux produits parce que maintenant, le licence ne le permet pas. Mais le préavis pour les produits dans les nouvelles catégories de cannabis, ça, une détenteur de licence peut soumettre cet avis à partir de 17 octobre seulement. Et ça, c'est parce que c'est la date où les nouvelles catégories de cannabis est établie.
D'accord, merci. Je vais comprendre la différence entre la modification de licence et le préavis.
En fait, les deux choses différentes, deux choses séparées. Il faut une modification de licence pour avoir la capacité de vendre des nouveaux produits. Dès que les nouveaux produits sont autorisés pour la vente légale, et cette date-là, c'est le 17 octobre, et c'est la même date où un détenteur de licence peut soumettre une avis disant Santé Canada qu'ils ont l'intention de vendre un produit dans une des trois nouvelles catégories. Et ça va commencer le mi-décembre. C'est le moment où une détenteur de licence peut vendre un produit à un distributeur dans une province ou un territoire.
Thank you. The next question is from Shauna Hunt from City News. À vous la parole. Please go ahead.
Hi there. Yes, this is sort of more to supply and demand. It sounds like the products will be very slow getting to market. How long do you anticipate it will take until demand is met?
So that's a difficult question for me to answer because really that will depend primarily on the regulated industry and both federally licensed producers and provincially and territorially authorized distributors and retailers. I guess just to repeat kind of the steps that my colleague outlined in French, there's kind of an orderly, logical sequence of events that have to happen between now and when products within the new classes will be available for purchase in authorized retail stores. So today, Health Canada is making available the final regulations, which essentially set all the rules around the manufacture, production, packaging, and labeling of these products. Beginning today, licensed industry has certainty on what the requirements will be for the manufacture of these products, and they can begin moving and starting to make plans to begin manufacturing and building inventory of these products. As soon as July 15th, those existing federally licensed processors will be able to apply to Health Canada to make sure that their license authorizes them to sell those new products when the regulations come into force on October 17th. At that same date, on October 17th, that's when the industry will be able to provide Health Canada with notice of what new products they intend to sell. So that is entirely up to them. I'm sure a number of companies have been planning their strategy over the past several months and now can move forward and execute on that strategy with full legal certainty what the rules will be. It's at the end of that 60-day pre-notice period that those products then can be made available for sale and available for purchase by Canadians. Now, we expect, but I mean, again, this is entirely up to the industry, that the types of new products that will be initially available will be kind of reflective of those decisions made by industry, and will likely be a small diversity of different products that kind of reflect those strategies. But that over time, a greater diversity of products will appear. There will be feedback in the market based on consumer preference and demand. The industry will respond. And over time, the market will mature and effectively displace the illegal market in Canada.
Okay, sorry, one more quick question, just beverages. Are those considered edible? So is the THC limit in beverages 10 milligrams?
That's correct. And one of the pieces of feedback we received from the industry during our public consultation, because many in the industry recognize that for a new consumer or novice consumer, that less than 10 milligrams of THC is an appropriate amount, as my colleague kind of talked about, is an appropriate amount to induce the desired effect. That the industry asked that we change the rules to allow them to package several containers of a beverage together, so for example, as a six-pack, and so that the total amount of THC in that six-pack would be limited to 10 milligrams, but in each can, you would have less, 2 milligrams, for example.
Thank you. The next question is from Christine Oram from Bloomberg News. Please go ahead. Have la parole.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. Just wondering, the comment that products can't be, reasonably considered to appeal to youth. So does that imply that, especially in the edibles category, there would be no gummy bears, no chocolate bars, that kind of thing? Have you sort of gotten into the specifics of what products will and won't be allowed, given that stipulation that they can't appeal to youth?
Yeah, so, I mean, as we kind of outlined in our comments, obviously one of the key objectives of the Cannabis Act and its regulation is to protect young people from the risks posed by cannabis, to reduce cannabis use among Canadian youth. And so part of the framework, a very big focus of the framework, is to reduce inducement and kind of the appeal of cannabis products to young people. So a key component of that is a prohibition against selling any cannabis product that would be reasonably considered to be appealing to a young person. So I would start by pointing out that this is not unique to the Cannabis Act. There are several pieces of federal legislation that deal with products and establish prohibitions on certain products that would be appealing to young persons. So that's found in the Tobacco Vaping Products Act, for example. So this is a legal standard that exists in Canada and is not new. With respect to your specific question around would this product be permissible or not, it's really hard to kind of answer that in the abstract. But if you're asking, if a gummy bear is appealing to a young person, would that be permitted? The answer is no. A gummy bear that is appealing to kids is prohibited by the Act, and it's an offense that's punishable by very serious consequences, up to 3 years, or up to 5 years in prison, 3 years in prison, and a $5 million fine. So the determination of whether or not a product is appealing to a young person needs to consider a range of factors. So its shape, is it shaped like a bear? Its color, is it a bright primary color? Is it fluorescent? Its smell, its flavor, what it's called, how it's packaged, how it's labeled, and how it's presented to consumers. And it's a consideration of all those factors. But when you look at that, you look at it and you conclude that's clearly a product that has been designed with all of those different features to be appealing to kids.
So just one quick follow-up on that then. So will this determination be made on a case-by-case basis then when companies come forward and say, we want to sell this type of product, then Health Canada will evaluate that and decide whether that can reasonably be seen as appealing to kids or not?
So it has to be made on a case-by-case basis. And the way it works, and what I would suggest is that the industry is ultimately responsible for the products that they manufacture and they sell. And so they need to look at the product and do that evaluation themselves, because ultimately they're responsible for their compliance. to be clear, the 60-day new product notification is not a pre-authorization or pre-approval for sale. It's a notice. So a company would submit a notice of a product they intend to sell. Now, Health Canada will look at that information. It'll be limited. It won't be, they don't have to actually submit the actual product. They have to submit, a description of it and so on. But that is something that Health Canada would look at, obviously. If in that notice, it sounds like there's a risk that the product would be appealing to young people and be in contravention of the Act. Health Canada would reach out to the producer and make sure that they understand their obligations under the Act and really make sure that they know what they need to do to be in compliance.
Thank you. The next question, la prochaine question is from Glenn McGregor from CDD National News. Please go ahead, have la parole.
Thanks for taking my question. I'm curious about the requirement for child-resistant containers. I mean, we understand how this works for pills, and we've seen cannabis, raw cannabis packaged in essentially pill bottles. But I'm wondering how that's going to work for example, baked goods, cannabis brownies, things like that. Have you looked to see that there's products on the market that are child-resistant containers for baked goods and gummy bears, for example?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And the reality is that when you look, for example, at U.S. states such as Colorado, Washington, or Oregon, which have legalized cannabis, including edible cannabis and cannabis extract, they universally, each one of those jurisdictions require cannabis to be packaged in a child-resistant container. I think that if you look at even the market today in Canada for dry cannabis and cannabis oil, you see a broad diversity of packaging. You do see, as you identified, plastic pill bottles, but you also see different types of packaging, such as bags. And a number of changes that we are making in the regulations through this announcement today are designed to facilitate kind of a greater diversity of packaging options. So a couple of changes I'll point to. The first is that there is requirement that certain information be displayed on the label of a cannabis product. And one of the changes that is being made is that some of that information can now be displayed behind a peel away or a fold-out label. It doesn't need to be on the exterior of the package, and that will allow for smaller container sizes. The other proposal, or another part of the regulation, is that cannabis can be wrapped in like a wrapper or wax paper or something like that, and so that facilitates the use of cardboard, for example, as a packaging material for things like edible cannabis, such as a chocolate bar. And just kind of finishing the thought, going back to those jurisdictions in the United States, you do see child-resistant packaging made of cardboard.
Okay. Could you also talk about the taxation piece of this? How the taxation rates will apply to these kinds of products as opposed to dry cannabis?
So they'll apply the same. So recently, the Department of Finance in the recent budget announced changes to the excise duty on cannabis, and it will apply to edible cannabis, cannabis extracts, and topical. So what those changes to the excise duty do is they impose a THC-based duty. So this better reflects the advice that was provided by the Expert Task Force on Cannabis Legalization and Regulation. So the actual amount of duty payable on the product will be based on the amount of THC in the product. This proposal also better aligns with the recommendations of the health community because it bases the duty on the intoxicating component of the product as opposed to just its weight.
Thank you, merci. The next question, la prochaine question nous vient de Tristan Péloquin de la Presse. Vous la parole, please go ahead.
Oui, bonjour. Ça précise que les titulaires vont pouvoir faire des demandes là, pour modifier leur licence. Mais qu'en est-il de ceux qui ne sont pas actuellement titulaires, qui sont des entreprises qui souhaiteraient entrer dans la transformation? est-ce qu'elles vont pouvoir arriver à temps pour la date du 16 septembre finalement? Allô?
S'il vous plaît, pendant que on discutait là.
Pardon?
Ok. Allô?
Oui.
Si je comprends bien vos questions, c'est est-ce que quelqu'un peut faire une demande pour être titulaire de licence?
Oui, puis ça, des entreprises qui ne sont pas des titulaires de licence, mais qui voudraient devenir des transformateurs, est-ce qu'ils vont pouvoir faire la demande et que ce soit prêt pour le 16 décembre, pour qu'elles puissent avoir des produits en marché le 16 décembre, ou il y a juste des titulaires actuels qui vont pouvoir être présents sur le marché?
En fait, si quelqu'un est dans le processus de demande avec Santé Canada, ce processus continuera, comme il y a certains éléments qui doivent être complétés, évidemment, afin que Santé Canada peut approuver une demande de licence. Et ça dépend dans chaque cas, comme le montant de temps nécessaire pour avoir fini le processus.
Okay.
I got a question.
Vous avez une autre question, M. Lopez?
Non, ça va aller, merci.
Merci. Next question is from Ross Lord. A question gets from again to Ross Lord, the Global National Television. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I haven't had a chance to go through the regs yet. I think I have it on an email attachment, but I heard your reference to limits on packaging and labeling and THC amounts. What restrictions do the regulations place on restaurants, and what restrictions do they place on ingredients like caffeine?
Sure. So, I mean, in terms of the first part of your question, about restaurants and their ability to sell cannabis products, I mean, it's important to remember that, to make cannabis products for sale, you need to hold a license from Health Canada, and more specifically, a processing license. And obviously, when it comes to, the question of retail sale, places where cannabis, can be sold in a province or territory, it's up to provinces and territories to issue those licenses, right? So obviously there's licensing components here that would have to be respected, but let's just say, for instance, a restaurant went through Health Canada's process and met all of its rules to become a licensed, cannabis processor. That's a pretty rigorous process, obviously, that has a number of elements, including physical and personnel security and quite a few other things. They would equally have to get a license from the province and territory. And then, of course, you need to remember that, in order to be sold, cannabis products have to be packaged and labeled according to rules that Health Canada set out, right? So we've been talking today about things like child-resistant containers and having health warning messages and having the excise stamp that from the Canada Revenue Agency that indicates that you paid the tax on the product, right? Part of the rules that we've announced today also indicate that all edible cannabis products need to be shelf stable. So that effectively, is something else that needs to be taken into consideration. So all of this to say that it would be difficult to contemplate a scenario where a restaurant make and sell and serve edible cannabis. With respect to your specific question on caffeine, the regulations do. The Cannabis Act actually prohibits adding caffeine to cannabis products. So Parliament's been really clear on that. Of course, we recognize that caffeine is naturally present in a lot of things, including chocolate. So the regulations do include an allowance for that, right? If caffeine is naturally present in an ingredient, its presence is allowed, but to a very limited amount, and more specifically, that's 30 milligrams of caffeine, which is a small amount.
Yeah. So just to to restaurants per se. I may have misheard this. Are you suggesting it's impractical or not logistically feasible for restaurants to sell food that contains cannabis, or are they not allowed? If I go to a restaurant and I want to order a cookie that has 10 megs of cannabis in it, are they allowed to serve that to me?
So, I mean, maybe I can be clear. The framework that's been constructed does not permit restaurants to prepare and serve meals containing cannabis to the public. I think that, the scenario that you talked about is, where could you walk into an establishment, purchase a product containing cannabis, and consume it on site? Is kind of what is often referred to as a consumption lounge or a consumption site. That is, under the framework, would be something that would be determined by local governments, provinces, and territories working with their municipality. So in that scenario of a consumption site or a consumption lounge, as my colleague pointed out, you would need to be authorized to sell cannabis by the province or territory, and you could only sell cannabis products that had been manufactured by a federally licensed processor and packaged and labeled accordingly and meeting all the other regulatory requirements.
Thank you. Merci. Our next question, prochaine question est de Lina Bibb de la presse canadienne. À vous la parole. Please go ahead.
Oui, bonjour. Moi, je voudrais revenir un petit peu aux dates, aux 60 jours, mais commencer par me dire si les fabricants peuvent commencer à fabriquer avant de demander le 15 juillet leur modification de licence, ou B, avant de demander le 17 octobre leur préavis pour des produits.
Oui, on fait chacune avec une licence de transformation maintenant peut commencer à produire des produits. Mais il doit respecter toutes les exigences établies dans le règlement d'aujourd'hui. Et en termes des étapes pour les transformateurs, ils doivent faire deux choses avant de pouvoir vendre des produits dans une nouvelle catégorie. Le cannabis comestible. Donc, d'abord, ils doivent faire leur demande pour modifier leur licence. Et deuxièmement, ils doivent éviter Santé Canada qui est dans l'intention de vendre des produits au moins 60 jours avant sa mise en vente.
Ça, j'avais déjà compris. Alors, oui. Mais la question demeure, qu'est-ce qui empêche un producteur de déposer son préavis avant le 17 octobre? Est-ce que c'est le règlement? Est-ce que c'est la loi? Ou est-ce que c'est juste un choix du ministère de dire on acceptera les préavis qu'à partir du 17 octobre?
En fait, c'est la loi et le règlement, les deux choses-là, parce que le règlement dit qu'avec l'avis, il y a trois choses qui doivent être fournies à Santé Canada, y compris le catégorie de cannabis. Et les nouvelles catégories ne seront pas établies avant le 17 octobre. C'est la date qui est reflétée dans la loi sur le cannabis pour les nouvelles catégories.
OK. Merci. Et si je peux m'en glisser une dernière, à propos de l'utilisation de sucre, ils sont interdits d'utiliser du sucre, des édulcorants, des colorants dans les produits de vapotage et les autres extraits de cannabis. C'est quoi les autres extraits de cannabis à part les produits de vapotage et quels autres édulcorants qui sont interdits?
On fait de catégories des extraits de cannabis peut comprendre les produits comme la cire, la HCI, pas mal d'autres choses qui sont là, l'huile de cannabis, des produits comme des capsules, des choses comme ça.
Thank you, merci. The next question is from Mark Randall from the Globe and Mail. Please go ahead, Howard.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yep.
Fantastic. A question about CBD. One of the biggest things I heard after the draft regs came out from food manufacturers as well as cannabis companies was a question of whether CBD would be regulated outside the Cannabis Act as a natural health product and a supplemented food. I don't see anything in the regs about that. So my question, I guess, is does Health Canada have plans to pursue a route similar to what we're seeing happening in the United States, where CBD will be regulated as a natural health product and able to be sold in health food stores, as
Good question.
that kind of stuff? Are there discussions ongoing about how CBD will be regulated relative to natural health products?
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. So you're correct in your review of the regulations. Nothing in what was announced today changes how CBD is regulated in Canada. And so to be clear, CBD is a component of cannabis and it's regulated under the Cannabis Act. So products containing CBD can be manufactured and sold pursuant to the framework established by the Cannabis Act. The only exception is the use of CBD in a prescription drug, in which case it would be regulated both under the Cannabis Act and the Food and Drugs Act. Now, you're right. During the consultation on the amendment to the regulations that we announced today, and even prior to that, a number of stakeholders have expressed the desire to see the regulatory framework for CBD change so that it could be used as an ingredient in therapeutic products or health products that would be regulated under the Food and Drugs Act, and that would not be prescription drugs only, but that may be over-the-counter or in a natural health product. So what Health Canada has committed to do is to hold consultations on that precise question. Health Canada remains committed to conducting further public consultation and to determine how best to provide regulatory oversight and address the kind of public health and safety concerns with the use of CBD in products that would be used for kind of therapeutic purposes.
Do you have a sense of a timeline on when those discussions or consultations will happen? That's the first part of the question. The second part is to have CBD regulated as an NHP or CBD infused foods, regulated supplement foods, would that require amendment to the Cannabis Act, or would that require amendment to other, regulations or legislation around natural health products?
So in terms of a timeline, I'm not in a position to be able to kind of provide any certainty on when those consultations would be launched. To your second question, what kind of legal changes would be required to kind of accommodate whatever policy proposals the government of Canada chooses to pursue? It's kind of difficult to speculate. It would really depend on the path forward that the government were to choose. But it would likely involve modifications to the framework set out under the Cannabis Act and also under the Food and Drugs Act.
Thank you, Merci. The next question is from Alana Sokik from the Cannabis Retail Magazine. Vous la parole. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. So understanding that July 15th is the date through which license holders can submit their amendments, and October 17th is the coming into force date, would it be possible following July 15th for license holders an amendment to their research license for palatability testing, or would that have to occur after October 17th?
So it's a pretty technical question. Palatability testing was raised during the consultation, and I think people need to understand that under the provisions of the cannabis regulations currently, a research license is required to be authorized to administer cannabis to human subjects. That's the wording in the regulation. And so, I guess what you're asking is, can you submit an amendment to your research license to allow administration to human subjects? You don't need to wait till July 15th. That's, if you hold a research license today, you are governed by the cannabis regulations today, and that research and development activity could, if you were authorized to do so, include administering cannabis to human test subjects.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next question is from Marie Vastel from Le Devoir. À vous la parole. Please go ahead.
Oui, bonjour. Je voulais juste préciser, au début, il y a une couple de questions de cela. Vous avez parlé des saveurs qui vont être interdites, me semble, pour le vapotage. Est-ce que vous pouvez juste les citer? Parce que je comprends que c'est dans les règlements, mais on n'a pas tout lu encore. Donc, juste préciser quelles sont ces saveurs-là qu'il ne faut pas mettre pour ne pas attirer les jeunes.
Merci pour la question. Et l'exigence là part de la promotion des certaines saveurs, notamment les confitures, les boissons énergétiques, de correct terme en français, aussi des choses comme les déserts. Il y a 4 choses dont le règlement interdit.
Mais pouvez-vous me dire c'est quoi? C'est ça ma question.
Oui, je cherche la terminologie en français.
Dites-le en anglais parce que ça serait pas me donner une réponse claire, s'il vous plaît. Merci.
So it's soft drink, energy drink, dessert, and confectionery.
What is the regulation?
So you can't promote those flavors on cannabis-facing products.
Okay, and just because I didn't read the entire slideshow because I got it as you had started speaking, can you just clarify in terms of alcohol and caffeine, what is allowed, what is not allowed in terms of mixing it with cannabis?
Sure. So the Cannabis Act is really clear. You cannot mix cannabis and alcohol, nicotine, or caffeine. Obviously there are public health risks, involved when you combine the two, those substances, right? So the regulations do create some very small exceptions with regard to caffeine that was present in a product because it's present naturally in an ingredient that you might use. The chocolate is a really good example, right? The regulations would allow you to use chocolate as an ingredient in your product. Chocolate has small amounts of caffeine that's naturally present, and to be sure that the rules are respected and that the intent of Parliament is respected, we are setting a cap on the amount of caffeine that could be present from those naturally occurring sources at 30 milligrams. Equally, again, with respect to alcohol, you cannot add alcohol to a cannabis edible product, right? There will be no cannabis-based alcoholic drinks. The regulations do again permit a very, very small amount of alcohol to be present in products because it's present in things like vinegars, right, and other ingredients. So there is a very small allowance there.
Thank you. The next question is from Brennan McDonald. La prochaine question est de Brennan McDonald from CBC. Please go ahead. À vous la parole.
Hi there. Thanks for taking my question and taking the time to do the briefing today. I was just hoping to get some further clarification around the gummy element of all of this and around edibles and the youth appeal restrictions. I guess, does Health Canada envision a scenario where a producer can make a gummy product that would actually be permitted under the Act? And just kind of more information on the restrictions around shape, color, smell, flavor, packaging. Because it seems a little unclear to me right now whether a producer can actually sell or make a gummy that would be permitted under the Act.
Yeah, so yes, gummies are not prohibited. I can imagine a circumstance where a licensed producer could manufacture a gummy, a cannabis that contains cannabis, and it would not be appealing to a young person. Similarly, I can imagine a producer producing a chocolate bar that contains cannabis and that is not appealing to a young person. As I indicated in my previous answer, you need to look at things like the color, the shape, the branding associated with it, the color, or the flavor, and so on. And we've had this discussion with the industry during the consultation on the regulations that Health Canada has committed to providing further guidance to the industry on this. But I mean, I would I would suggest that it's actually not a difficult thing to determine. If you are looking at a product, and you can think of chocolate bars on the market today. There are chocolate bars that are designed and marketed to older consumers, to adult consumers, and there are chocolates and candies that are marketed to kids. And what we really are encouraging the industry to do, and what they are required to do by law, is to make sure that they are producing those cannabis products for the adult market and not for kids.
Okay, so will Health Canada then, I guess, be providing guidance around the factors then, like what shapes are permitted, what colors are permitted, what smells, flavors are permitted?
No, so we're not in the world of kind of prescribing to the industry what specific, how to design their gummies and what color they should be and so on. The way the framework is set out is it sets a performance-based standard, right? This is the line. Your product cannot be appealing to a young person. Now you, as an industry, acting responsible, have full range to design your product within that space. You can be innovative, you can be competitive, you can design your product, imagine it, however you want to imagine it, provided that you do not cross that line. Make sure that your product is not appealing to kids.
Thank you, merci. The next question is from Kieran Delamont from Read Maps News. Please go ahead, à vous la parole.
Hi, so I'm currently looking at a bottle of gel caps made by a licensed producer that has, by my calculation, 37.5 milligrams of THC in it. Now, I'm wondering why Health Canada views soft gels that are widely available now differently than, say, something like a gummy and not being able to be packaged in larger amounts than 10 milligrams.
That you're referring to would fall into the cannabis extract class, which means that you cannot include sugar, sweetener, or color. However, if I'm making a gummy, I can add sugar, sweetener, and color. And so that inherently increases the risk, the palatability of that product, and therefore the risk of overconsumption and accidental consumption.
Many of these oils, though, are bright colors. They look a lot like cinnamon hearts, some of them. I'm just wondering why they get classified differently and say something like why are the assumption that they can be consumed responsibly and then a package of the same ingredients but with a chewable format couldn't be?
So, I mean, I guess that's the point. The premise of your question is inaccurate. They don't have the same ingredients. So edible cannabis has a lot more flexibility in terms of the ingredients that can be used in the manufacture of that product, including, as I pointed out, sweeteners and sugar, whereas extracts cannot include those ingredients. So it's hard for me. I don't see the same bottle that you hold. I don't know if that's a compliant product. If it was, I can't do that over the phone. But that's the rationale. These are different products. They have different palatability, and therefore they have different requirements with respect to THC. And that provides flexibility on the other side, right? Is that we understand that there are segments of adult consumers who do wish to ingest higher amounts of THC for different reasons, and so the extract class provides the legal industry with the ability to manufacture, market, and sell those products. But given the government's overarching objective of protecting a young person, we are limiting their ability to do that to this class of products, which have other rules around them that limit their palatability and therefore the risk that if they were to end up in the hands of a child, they would eat them like candy because they're not candy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next question, la prochaine question nous vient d'Amélie Bergeron, agence QMI. À vous la parole. Please go ahead.
Oui, bonjour. Ma question est sur les saveurs interdites. C'est que la question a déjà été posée.
Mais j'ai pas très bien compris la réponse. Donc, en anglais ou en français, juste donner une réponse claire. Là, ce que j'ai compris, c'est que les saveurs de confiture, de dessert et de boissons énergisantes sont interdites dans les produits. Est-ce que c'est bien ça?
En fait, la question des flaveurs, le règlement exige, on fait une interdiction pour la promotion de certains flaveurs pour certains produits dans les catégories d'extrait de cannabis. Il est important de noter que le produit même, par exemple, produit de verbetage, peut avoir une saveur. C'est juste que certains saveurs ne peuvent pas être promouvoir. Il est important de noter aussi que ici, on parle juste des catégories des extraits de cannabis. Il n'y a aucune interdiction dans le règlement pour les saveurs pour les produits de cannabis comestibles.
Okay, I didn't understand. Can you just repeat that in English? And so, what do you mean by the promotion of these?
Right.
What do you mean by that?
You can't promote. You can't, promote the presence of certain flavors for vaping products, for example. You can't promote that vaping product would have, an energy drink flavor. There could be chemical compounds in the product that would give it that flavor. You just can't, promote it as having that same flavor because obviously, the promotion of that, making some kind of statement about it on a product package or label, could very likely make that product, more appealing to a young person. And that's, absolutely one of the things the government wants to reduce, right, is the appeal of cannabis products to young persons. So the rules in this space around, flavors, and again, it's certain prescribed flavors of soft drinks, energy drinks, dessert and confectionery flavors. These are prohibited in kind of promotion and advertising, space. And this is absolutely also what happens on the for other vaping products, right? For non-cannabis-based vaping products that are regulated under the Tobacco and Vaping Products Act. So we're absolutely in alignment there.
Thank you, merci. The next question is from Andrea Gunn from the Chronicle Herald. Please go ahead. À vous la parole.
Hi there. I'm just wondering why there has been an allowance for edibles to currently be sold legally on through the provinces and in stores when they're only, I guess it seems like the regime is to legalize them is only coming on now. And I guess what will happen, will those edibles, like the capsules that currently exist, which are just edibles that are, I guess, sweet and colorful, will they still be available up until when the new regulations come in? Or, I'm just not really sure how this works. I'm not really following.
Yeah, sorry, I can clarify that. So there are 5 classes of cannabis products that are permitted for legal sale today. So cannabis plant, cannabis seeds, dried cannabis, fresh cannabis, which is basically the flower of the cannabis plant but not dehydrated, and cannabis oil. And cannabis oil is a distinct class that has been permitted for sale since the Cannabis Act first came into force and was also permitted for legal sale under the previous Access to Cannabis for Medical Purposes framework. So cannabis oil is essentially a mix of an extract of cannabis that usually contains THC or CBD or some proportion of those two phytocannabinoids that has been diluted in a carrier oil. And under the current rules, those are the only ingredients that are permitted in cannabis oil: the cannabis itself, the carrier oil, and then any ingredient that's needed to kind of maintain the stability and quality of the product. So cannabis oil is available for legal sale today through provincially or territorially authorized retailers, but it is not considered edible cannabis. It's not considered the class of cannabis that will be enabled under the regulations released today. In terms of what happens to those products on a go-forward basis, still remain legal. They'll be subsumed essentially under the cannabis extracts class. And in fact, the industry will have greater flexibility in the manufacture of those products because now they will be able to add additional ingredients to those extracts, such as flavors, for example. But they will not be able to add, as I indicated earlier, things like sugar or sweeteners or coloring.
So the main difference between the cannabis oil that's available today and the cannabis extract that would be available under the new set of laws is just the fact that they're able to add like flavors essentially.
Yeah, and the other big change is actually cannabis oil today is limited in how much THC can be contained in the product. So right now, it's limited to 3% THC, and under the proposed rules, there would be that 3% limit would be removed, and so you could have higher amounts of THC in extract.
Thank you. The next question is from David George Kosh from BNN Bloomberg. Please go ahead. La parole.
Hi, thank you. Just wondering if you can kind of educate me on the process after a licensed producer submits their application on July 15th. Like, how many staff are equipped to handle these applications? How long do you expect these applications to take? What exactly are you looking for? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I don't have that level of detail available today. We can follow up with you, or if you follow up with our media relations, we can provide that answer. Health Canada will be going out with a series of information sessions to existing license holders and license applicants over the next couple of weeks to provide that level of detail. Health Canada has a license application guide, a license management guide. All of those documents will be updated to provide precisely those answers.
And do you have a goal in how many license approvals you should have in place by October 17th?
Again, I'm not the person to be able to answer that, and there are currently 180 federally licensed producers, both processors and cultivators. There are a number of those that are specific to processing. And the expectation is that as industry comes in, if their application is complete and they meet all the requirements of the regulations, that they will have their license amended in time to be able to manufacture and sell these products to provincial and territorial authorized retailers.
David, it's Eric in Media Relations here. If you follow up with the team, someone from my team will follow up with you and we can provide you with the response later on.
Thank you, merci. The next question is the last question from Mathieu Audier. Ce sera la dernière question de Radio-Canada. À vous la parole. Please go ahead.
Est-ce que vous avez une évaluation de la taille du marché, c'est-à-dire que ça peut représenter au Canada? Est-ce que vous pouvez nous aider à comprendre un peu l'ampleur de ce qui s'en vient, de ce que ça peut représenter en termes de marché commercial?
Somebody should be asking them about the black market and how they're going to deal with the fact that 80% of the money being spent on cannabis right now in Canada is going to the black market. That's the question that I had. Nobody asked. I'd like to know what they're going to do about that.
Telle évaluation. Il y a évidemment un nombre de compagnies qui publient le propre rapport de tout ça, basé en part sur l'expérience de certains États américains comme le Colorado et la Californie. Aussi, certaines données publiées par Statistique Canada, incluant un rapport qui a été publié il y a quelques semaines qui dit que la moitié des Canadiens qui sont consommateurs de cannabis maintenant achètent le cannabis d'une source légale. Mais en termes d'une évaluation propre de Santé Canada, non, il n'y en a pas.
D'accord. Et puis, sinon, est-ce qu'il y a une prochaine étape? Est-ce qu'il reste des choses à regarder pour vous en termes d'autres catégories de produits ou ce qui est fait en ce moment, ça encadre tout? Est-ce que vous pensez qu'il y aura d'autres changements à la réglementation à faire éventuellement?
Ça se peut, c'est probablement trop maintenant à déterminer, mais on est confiant qu'avec le règlement annoncé aujourd'hui, que maintenant l'industrie légale peut produire et vendre une vaste gamme de produits. Si, par exemple, on compare nos catégories, des catégories dans des États américains comme le Colorado et la Californie, c'est sûr que maintenant, il y a pas mal de diversité entre vous autres et nous autres.
Merci, thank you. So, Mr. Morissette, this was our last question. C'était notre dernière question. Je vous retourne la parole. Please go ahead. Merci.
Thank you, Louise. This will be all for today's technical briefing. Any additional questions can be directed to the Health Canada Media Relations Unit at 613-957-2983 or by email at hd.media.ca.